Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Roderick Jefferson. Roderick has written a book called Sales Enablement 3.0, and we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, Roderick, where can people find you?
First of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I will say this, if you can't find me, you're not really trying. Because I'm all over the place. So
you are all over social, yes.
Absolutely. So let me run down the social media. My LinkedIn is Roderick Jefferson. If you're trying to find me on either Twitter or Facebook, it's at the Voice of Rod. You can email me at info@roderickjefferson.com, or you can go to my website, roderickjefferson.com. Or if you'd like to find me on Instagram, I'm at Roderick_J_associates. Again, if you can't find me, you're not really trying, Tim.
Fantastic. Thanks, Roderick. So you've written this book about Sales Enablement 3.0. You've got a background in, you've got a great background in sales enablement. So why don't you give people an overview of your journey yourself?
Sure. First and foremost, and I always start this way, I'm a sales guy. I am not a trainer by trade. I am a salesperson that fell into training, and I'll explain that in just a moment. So I started out as an inside salesperson, a BDR, right? So I've got a lot of love for that role. I know how difficult it is because I've walked in those shoes. Did really well, got promoted to the role of AE, went to President's Club, all that fun stuff, and then got promoted to the role of sales leader, which I promptly turned down, Tim. And I know folks always wonder, why would you turn down a leadership?
Why did you turn that down?
Well, I realized that I actually loved the process of selling more than I did taking down big deals. So as the smart sales guy, what I did was actually worked with my regional VP and talked myself into a new role, which was regional trainer. And that gave me an opportunity to share kind of the rudimentary tools and templates that had helped me get to President's Club and got to that promotion. And that's where the spark of sales training started, right? And so from there, I moved over to Siebel Systems, ran sales training there, and actually grassrooted it.
Yep.
And since then, I have held the title of sales training, sales effectiveness, sales enablement, a number of titles over my 25-year career at Network Appliance, Business Objects, eBay, HP, Oracle, Salesforce, and Marketo prior to starting my own consulting firm. So it's been a pretty decent ride.
Yeah, and there's some pretty decent companies there.
So, not bad. A couple of them, I think the stocks are going to do well one day.
So you've now written this book called Sales Enablement 3.0. So why have you written the book?
Well, let me start with, the book is called Sales Enablement 3.0, and the subtitle is The Blueprint to Sales Enablement Excellence. Right. And I think that really sets the kind of plane for why I wrote it. And it was a couple of reasons. One, because I had been in this and had to learn how to and how not to so much. I wanted to share a blueprint with folks that were coming behind me, right? And also because, again, to my knowledge, and I will caveat this, I am the person that started the nomenclature of sales enablement. So I wanted to make sure that I could get out my version of what sales enablement is. Because I believe if you ask 10 people, you'll probably get 12 answers. There's not a standardized answer around what we do. Yeah. And the final reason I wrote it was in regards to all of the other lines of business inside of a company. I get this question all the time. What does sales enablement do, and how do we work with them? How do we collaborate and coordinate and orchestrate with them? So I wanted to say in a definitive manner, here's what's going on. And by the way, this book is not a bunch of unicorns and rainbows. It's not all the wonderful things about what I've done in my career. I actually talk about some pitfalls and some huge mistakes that I've made in hopes that others don't have to fall in the same pit that I had.
And that's great about sharing your experience, because I know when we've talked about you before, for you, this is about kind of handing the baton on. It's a just hit my hand. It's about passing the baton on to the people that are coming up and the young people.
Indeed. For those that are trying to either transfer into sales enablement, maybe you're a salesperson or you're product marketing and now you're migrating into sales enablement, or for those that have been in sales enablement for a while and want to up-level their game. Because the interesting thing about sales enablement is over the last 20, 25 years, I've watched a steady migration and up-leveling of sales enablement tools and technology. Yep. Unfortunately, as practitioners, we're still doing the same thing the way that we've always done it.
Yes.
And so I wanted to change that. And there has been one determining factor that has really helped with this. And the one positive thing that I will say from this COVID experience that we're going through globally is the fact that it has forced true sales enablement practitioners to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And what I mean by that, Tim, is get away from the way we've always done things. All this stand and deliver in front of an audience, well, guess what? That goes away. And I think what it's done is kind of separated the wheat from the chaff, if you will, of the true sales enablement practitioners from what I call the sales enablement theorists.
So I'm sales enablement. It's relatively new, even though it's been around a few years. And I love the fact that you're saying that you're bringing this together and you're creating, in effect, a methodology and I'm trying to think, and like a stamp of quality.
Yeah, we'll call it a blueprint.
Yeah,
right?
A blueprint. That's good phrase. So
you think that I used that in my book title or something, Tim?
It is, yeah. It would be great, wouldn't it? So what's your definition of what sales enablement is?
So to me, sales enablement is about getting the right sales teams in the right conversation, the right way, with the right tools. And let me give a little depth around that piece.
Please, yeah.
So it's about breaking the complexity of sales into practical ideas through scalable and repeatable practices that will ultimately lead to accelerated speed to revenue, increased seller productivity, and the coordination of the front of the house sales and the back of the house account management and customer success as we build that house into one family so that we don't create a short hallway that customers are retreating out of the back door. If I may really quickly, I give an analogy I think that kind of really explains it in a simple term. Think about an orchestra, a physical orchestra. You've got strings, you've got percussion, you've got woodwinds, you've got brass. Well, now let's align those to the lines of business: marketing, product management, HR, sales, etc. Now, they're all trying to do the right thing for the customer and play the right notes. The problem is they're sometimes playing on top of each other, sometimes they're sour notes, sometimes they're out of sync, until one person or organization, I see the smile, you see where I'm going.
I do.
One person or organization steps up, taps the stand as the conductor, we'll call them sales enablement. And all of that noise and chaos becomes a beautiful sheet of music. That's in essence what sales enablement does.
And so in your book, what are you laying out in terms of? I mean, that's a beautiful description of what sales enablement does. What are you doing in terms of laying out the methodology that people need to be working for? Because I agree with you that I talk to a lot of sales enablement people, and their definition in every single company is different. Yeah,
and that's what I lay out in the book is. Some companies it's training, some companies it's sales leadership coaching, other companies it's purely about onboarding because they're in that hyper growth mode. Some companies it's about tools and platforms and processes. And I will say this, as I say in the book, none of those are wrong, but none of those are complete either. So what I lay out in the book is all of those components and how they play in an end-to-end methodology, from looking at things like talent acquisition and then all of the pieces of onboarding. Next, I talk about the need for role-specific business acumen, because what's too technical for one, not technical enough for another, or deep enough for another. Then I talk about the important piece, which is coaching and reinforcement of the first and second line sales leaders and sales coaches, and the difference between sales managers and sales leaders and coaches,
yes,
and how imperative that is. Because we both know that what's important to your leader is imperative to you. And also that first and second line leader has to own the adoption, the execution, and most importantly, the modeling of the positive behavior that sales enablement puts in place. Yep. Next, I talk about measurement. Oh, this is a tough one, because for the longest, sales enablement, we have been measured by smiley sheets and butts and seats. And I'm talking about pure vanity stats, no longer. Now it's all about what are we doing to accelerate that speed to revenue? How are we impacting the funnel? What are we doing for close rates? How are we helping accelerate that speed to revenue? All the things that matter to true sales folks. Let's not leave out CSMs and account managers. We talk about things like reducing red accounts, talk about customer NPS scores and all the other things that come in there. Because I believe there are two types of metrics. One that sales enablement owns and one that we impact and influence. Right. So the impact and influence are all the things I just talked about.
Yeah.
The things that we own are things like the measurements, the programs, the platforms, the tools, and the overall infrastructure of the sales enablement ecosystem. And then finally in the book, I talk about where, and the whole thing is where are we going? Now, I want to be clear on that. Sales Enablement 3.0 is the future of sales enablement. It's not where we've been or where we are today. It's literally how are we going to infuse and integrate AI into sales enablement, because it's here already. But the problem is it's being used sparingly, or people are afraid that this is going to take away your job. And let me talk to my sales enablement practitioners for a moment. Your job is not going away, because ultimately for sales enablement, it's not about platforms, processes, or programs. It is about people. And as long as people are buying from people, your job is safe. As long as you are able to substantiate the value of what you bring to a company, i.e. helping your customers maintain the customers they have today. And it's no longer enough to talk about decreasing time to revenue, accelerating sales productivity, or even the structure, the strategy architecture. Shift the conversation if you want to be valued. Those are the things that made us the fixers of broken things and broken people, which we are not. Those are the things that only made you a trainer, which is one-time spot event and not a long tail behind it with metrics and a substantiated longer program. What I want you to start focusing on are things like, how can you help your prospects and your customers increase profit? How can you help them reduce costs? How can you help them mitigate risk? And how can you help them to start having business-focused conversations that sound more like this? I want you to help your sales professionals to start having conversations and stop giving presentations. There is the crux of the book.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Roderick. I mean, I think that what I'm seeing still is the fact that people are trying to have presentation. You know, they're in effect they've been told something by marketing. This is what you need to broadcast, and in fact, sales are based on conversations.
100%.
And the conversation is like what we're having right now. And you know, you say something, I listen. I say something, you listen. One of the things that we're seeing at the moment, I think you touched on it earlier on, is the fact that the technology seems to be going, accelerating ahead of the salespeople, and the salespeople aren't necessarily keeping up with the technology. Is that something that you're seeing?
Oh, 100%. And I would put the fault on that squarely on the shoulders of my fellow brothers and sisters in sales enablement. Right. And the reason I say that, and it's not a shot at us, it's just honesty. We are enamored with shiny tools, which means as soon as something is new, we want to be the early adopter. We've got to go jump on that new tool. Let me be clear. Advanced technology, I'm all for. I'm all about technology. However, just because it's a new shiny toy does not mean you have to play with it. And for those that are moving from company to company, just because it worked in your previous environment or your previous company doesn't guarantee it's going to work here. It comes down to where your company is in the maturation cycle and the growth of that company. Make sure that you're aligning the tools to things that are going to be of high value. And how do you do that? Back to what we were just talking about, Tim. Have conversations with your sales leaders. Go out and talk with your sales folks. Jump on Zoom calls for prospects and for customer conversations with both sales, with BDRs, and also with technical sales and your CSMs, because that's where you're going to learn. That gives us an opportunity to be the hub that spokes out to every part of the organization. Here's how we become valuable. Listen to a call or a number of calls. Go back and say, product marketing, absolutely love the company pitch. But slide 8, 9 gets a little fuzzy. Can we either smooth that out or take it out? Because, oh, by the way, our people aren't talking about it because they don't know how to message and position. Yeah. Go to product management and say, I've heard this request for feature 10 times. How do we get that moved up on the release cycle? Go back to sales and to HR and say, you know, as I'm watching and I'm listening to these conversations, I'm realizing that our engagement is happening significantly higher in the food chain at the C level now. Our people aren't prepared to speak there. Maybe it's a combination of we need to work on a deeper level of executive level conversation, or we need to shift our IEP. What would that be? Our ideal employee profile. Right. Now we need more seasoned professionals rather than the younger junior sellers. Now, when you start having those conversations, no longer are you now talking at the, well, we need training and we need XYZ. You are becoming a strategic partner that is weaving sales enablement into the fabric of your company. Then what happens is it makes it up to the C level eventually. And it becomes a part of the overall company goals of enablement. It's no longer just the sales enablement initiative. It doesn't get any better than that.
I love that. I agree. I think that quite often in organizations, if people feel that because they may not have a job title that says they're important, they're not important. And everybody is in fact a leader.
Well, aren't we finding out right now who's really important with essential workers? The same goes inside of companies,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah. And there was an interesting debate in because what we actually found that there was actually delivery people are essential workers, whereas we always saw delivery people as we were was as low down, and actually it's all been risen up, and the and the thing is for me as a leader is I like people coming to me and telling me, Tim, this doesn't work, or this could be better. There's nothing that I like actually because right, brilliant. Well, if it's not working, well, let's fix it. But better still, someone saying that it didn't work and we're thinking of changing it to this. What do you think? Well, if it's better, then that's great. So actually, and I think sometimes people lower down in organization are scared to say this doesn't work, whatever. And actually, the leaders are actually expecting people to stand up. So I love the way that you're saying that.
Well, I love where you're going because there's a simple statement that I've always made, and that is, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Right. And a true leader wants to be shown not just their strengths and all their accolades, but we also want to be shown where our shortcomings are, which shows that we are perpetual learners. Now that again is an opportunity to model that for the folks that are on our team and our organizations. I think there's one way that I have learned over the years that shows the highest level of leadership as well as EQ. And that is start every conversation with a 3-part question.
Right.
And that 3-part question is as simple as this. When someone comes to you, say they're on your team or someone in the organization, start it with, do you want me to listen? Do you want me to coach? Or do you want me to fix? Let's think about that for a moment. It does 2 things. One, as leaders, we're natural fixers. That's how we got to where we are.
Yeah.
But not all the time is that what is required in a conversation. So it allows the leader to put on the right ears for the conversation.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it says to the other individual, to your point earlier, in that mutually equitable back and forth conversation, it says to the other person, this conversation is all about you. So tell me how I can help you. And the best I can do sometimes is just listen. You need to get things out of your head. Sometimes it's coaching. Hey, you've seen this before. How have you seen it work or not work? Or sometimes it's a fix. Hey, I've tried everything I know how to do. How do I do it? You've done this before. And that changes the mode of the conversation, the mood of the conversation. And it also shows you as a true, open, empathetic leader. And you are listening to that individual and not trying to peanut butter across your team.
Yeah.
That is a game changer.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's fantastic.
Thank
you. My favorite manager was his key skill was listening. Because I've had lots of managers that will, you go in and say, can I have a conversation with you? And they just type in, yeah, come on. And they're like typing away. And it's like, you're not listening to me. I've got something really, I know it's not important to you, but it's important to me. And my favorite manager would, every now and again, he'd move everything away from him like that. And shut the door. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm yours. What do you want to talk about?
That's a great leader.
It's about maybe he can't fix those things, but it's that would actually, he didn't actually say, what can I listen to? What can I coach? What can I fix? But in a way, I think he was doing those things. I love that. I think that's great.
I love it because, again, it tells the other person the conversation's about them. And it also stops us from going into automatic fix mode.
Yes.
Because that's not generally what's required. Most of the time it's just listening. And I've realized over the years that the essence of being a successful salesperson is listening more than talking. And when we start doing that, then we stop selling and we simply start helping.
Yeah. So we're up to our 20 minutes. Thank you so much for coming on, Roderick. Remind where can people find your book?
Sure. So you can send an email to info@roderickjefferson.com. That's RODERICKJEFFERSON.com. And that will get you added onto the pre-sale list. And the book should be out shortly. And for those that are on the pre-sale list, I'm actually going to provide you with a hardcover copy of the book, as well as a couple of other really cool surprises that I'm sure you're going to appreciate.
Okay. So when are we expecting the book to come out?
The book will come out in January.
Okay, fine.
So
okay.
we're fairly close now. Right now, it's about
Exciting.
taking care. Look, you've written a book. It's about making sure that all the mistakes that you've made, someone else catches before people reading it catches it.
Yeah, my partner read mine. She said, there's something missing from it. I said, what like? She said, there's a conclusion. And I said, no, there is a conclusion. She said, no. And what happened was that the publishers had a mistake. They'd missed it. And so we got to the point where they'd actually missed a chapter out, and I'm going like, where's the conclusion? So I know what it's like right at the end. You've got to make sure it's right.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you.
Remind everybody where they can get hold of you, Roderick.
Alrighty. So again, for those that are looking to reach out, you can find me on LinkedIn at Roderick Jefferson. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook at The Voice of Rod. Email info@roderickjefferson.com, on the web at roderickjefferson.com, and on Instagram at Roderick_J_associates. Look forward to hearing from you and answering any questions that may come up from this.
Thank you so much. And I agree with you that if they haven't found you, they haven't looked hard enough, because you are very active on social. So and I love this stuff. And I love the stuff that you create, because it's the empathy and your some of the things that you talk about are just so fantastic, and people should be, you're one of the people that I know, I've connected, but you're one of the people that I now look out for, because
Thank you very much.
Where's Roderick? I haven't seen him today. So.
Well, I'll leave you with this, and for those that have seen me on social media, the reason for writing this book again was as a blueprint, and also so that folks have a strategy on how to move forward in their enablement career, or how to work with enablement. Because again, if you've seen anything, I believe nothing happens by accident, because my favorite hashtag, Tim, hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time I heard that, and on a sales training course, I thought, oh yes, that's so true.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Roderick. Good to talk to you.
Same to you.